Hi everyone, today I'm going to show you how to create a blog and host it using GitHub Pages for free, and I'll also show you how to add a custom domain and Google Ads. So first off, I'm just going to create a repository that's going to hold my Hugo blog configuration and any of my markdown blog files. So I'll go ahead and create that code in a minute, but I'm also going to create a second repository that will be for my GitHub pages. It's going to hold all my static content. I'm just going to name that miscodingnz.github.io, and I'm going to add a README and make this public. This is basically going to automatically set up the GitHub page so that it shows that README, and when there is some static content, then it's going to go ahead and show that. You'll want that miscodingnz.github.io, that subdomain, to actually align with your account or organization. So you can see that's using the branch main and the root, and it's also saying that the site is ready to be published at that link. It can take a few minutes to publish, but once it does, it'll look something like this. Next up, you're going to want to go ahead and install Hugo, so you can run the command brew install Hugo if you haven't already. I've actually installed it already, so I'm not going to run that command. And then I'm going to use the command Hugo new site and then the site name to create the code for my blog. So once that's done, I can go and change into that directory. Now I'm going to go ahead and add all that code to Git. So you can see that's not a Git repository yet, so what I'm going to want to do is I'll just go to my blog repo, as it'll have all the instructions. I'm just going to want to follow these different instructions. I'm not adding a README for this one, so I can skip that step, and then I can go ahead and I can add the files and commit. Whoops, I actually need to add those files first. So yeah, like I said, just go ahead and add the files and then commit. Next up, you're going to want to make sure that you're on the main branch, and you're also going to want to add the remote origin. So I'm just going to copy this line here, so that's adding the remote origin of my repo, and then I can push my changes there. Cool. So now that's done, if I refresh, I should see some files there that represent my Hugo site. I also want to add a Git Ignore. So what I usually use for creating Git Ignores is this top tail site, because you can add as many different tech as you want, and then just create a Git Ignore file so that it covers anything that's kind of relevant. So if I go to Visual Studio Code, I can add my Git Ignore file. Cool, looking good. So I'm just going to go and commit those as well. And when I've done that, I can go ahead and I'm going to go and choose a Hugo theme. So Hugo has a whole heap of lists of themes, but this is one that I found that I like, so it's called B-List. It allows for different languages, and there's a demo site if you want to check it out. It also has a dark and light mode, and it's MIT license, which means that you can use it for free for commercial or non-commercial uses. So I'm going to use this submodule add to add the theme to that themes B-List folder. So once you've got the theme, you can actually, there's an example site that you can run to sort of see how it works. But you're also going to want to install a few things like this post CSS CLI, and you're also going to want to install some Node modules. I've already installed the post.css CLI, so I'm going to just go ahead and copy these package.json and package.lock.json files into my blog directory. And then I'm just going to go to the command line and go npm install. So not all themes will require this. Most themes will have a README and tell you how to go about using them. This one requires you to install some Node modules. Once you've done with that, you're going to want to edit your config.toml file, which basically is the configuration for your blog or site. You don't actually need to always create blogs with Hugo. You can also do like marketing sites and things like that. But it allows you to generate the files really easy. The example site has a example config, so I've copied that. I'm just going to make some changes when necessary. I don't need that base URL. I've already got that included, and I don't need that title because I've already set that. You can see they've got this content/en. And basically what that means is it's configured, this theme has configured that all the content should be placed in different language directories, depending on the language. So I'm just going to go, I created that en directory, and I'm going to go edit some of the text that's going to show on the home page. I'm not going to have any other languages, so I'm going to just show you that. I'm going to delete those in a minute. And I'm not going to provide an image as a logo. It can just be the text of my blog name. So it's got some menus here. So we've got this page/about, blog, and tags. And then we've got this other one, top post. I'm just going to delete that one. I don't want any other languages, so I'm going to go ahead and delete all these other languages. Then you've got a few different parameters. So you've got like whether you want to enable dark mode toggling, whether you want to enable search, the copyright message, your fav icon if you have one, and just some other different color configs. And you've also got some social media configs as well. So you can configure your different Instagram, YouTube accounts, whatever you want to sort of show. So yeah, that's pretty much what you would be doing in terms of configuring your Hugo website. And once you've done that, you can actually go ahead and run it. So I'm also going to just put my base URL inside here. So base URL is important because otherwise, without it, your theme's not going to usually show correctly. So now I'm just going to run this locally just so I can check what it looks like, and you can do that running the command Hugo server. It'll just go ahead and build some files that you can view what it would look like. Once that runs, you can go to localhost 1313 and it'll show you your blog. So this is my blog site. You can see that image isn't working because I haven't provided one yet. And you can see if I click on blog, it doesn't find anything or about, and that's because I haven't actually added those markdown pages yet. But you can see dark theme toggling works, and there's a search option. Now that I've got that going, what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to show you how to actually put this onto your actual live URL and host it on your GitHub page. So basically, I'm just committing all my changes to my blog so that if I were to lose my computer for whatever reason, I could get that code back without too much drama. I'm just going to also exclude Node modules in the Git Ignore, and I'm just going to do some cleanup there, just so that node modules isn't checked in because it's not really good to do that. So I just deleted a few things and cleared it up so that node modules is not going to be included, and I just pushed my changes. Cool, so now that I've done that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this URL for my GitHub page repo, and I'm going to add another submodule. So what I'm doing is I'm adding it to the public folder, and why I'm doing that is that's where all the static content gets generated. Okay, so it's ignored by the Git Ignore, so it's telling me that I have to use F if I want to force this add. I'm just going to force it through using the force command with that -F. Okay, so another issue happened. So public already exists because it was generated by Hugo. But if I go ahead and delete it, I should be able to add. What that adding submodule will do is basically it'll get whatever's in that repo and bring it in. So it'll just have my README for now. But what I'm going to want to do is generate files there so that then I can push them to my GitHub Pages account. Repo. So to do that, to generate those files, you go Hugo-T and then your theme name. So my theme is called blist. And once that generates, you can go ahead and change into your public directory, add all your files that you need, and do a git commit. And then you're going to want to push that. So yeah, that's going to add all those static files to that miscodingnz.github.io Git repo. So if I refresh here, you'll be able to see them all. And if I go to my miscoding NZ page, I should also see the actual changes there. So it hasn't quite generated yet. It does take a few minutes sometimes, but after a few refreshes, you can see it's showing up just as it did locally. It's just hosted live on that miscodingnz.github.io page. And it's got a more useful 404 message because it's more of a production build. So now that you can see that, what I'm going to want to show you is adding a few different pages. So to add pages, you go Hugo new and then the path to the page. So I'm going to add to the blog directory a hello world markdown file. And I'm going to add to the page directory an about markdown file. And that's just because of what I've set up in my config.toml file. And you can see that these files have been added. They've got this draft true, which means that they're not actually going to show up on your website until you remove that. You can add some additional information, so some additional metadata. And what I'm going to include is that I'm the author. I'm going to include a description of what the post is about. And I'm also going to go ahead and include some tags. So tags basically group together your different posts into different categories. So if someone was interested in a particular thing you've kept posting about, maybe you're a renovator and they want to see your bathroom renos, you might have a bathroom tag. Then they would just be able to look directly at that. Note I removed draft as true from this one. So when I go and run my Hugo server command, it should actually be able to show my blog posts because it's not in draft mode. And I'm just changing these tags to match what this blog's about. You can also do things like providing sort of images so that you can see what, like a nice visual representation of what the blog might be about, particularly useful for things like food blogs or lifestyle blogs. I'm going to run my Hugo server command, which will generate my files, and then go back to my localhost site. So if I run that, you can see I've got my first blog here. If I click on it, it's at the URL blog/hello world. If I go to my about, it doesn't work even though I've got a file for page/about. And it doesn't have the tags for the about page either. And that's just because I haven't set draft to false yet or removed that draft true. So let's go ahead and remove that, and I'll show you that this works. If I go ahead and save, then it will fix up my website. If I go to the About page, you can now see that it's not a 404 error anymore. So now that I've done that, I'm going to go and add an image to the static folder so that I can sort of show you where you might put your images. So you'd typically put in the static folder, and then you'd update your config file to align with that. So I'm just going to update to me.jpg because that's the name of my intro photo. And if I go to miscoding blog, okay, so it's not working yet. Yeah, okay. I'll go back to Visual Studio Code and just remove that slash. I think it'll work after this. Yeah, cool. So it's working now. You can see an image there that I've added to my static folder. And I can just commit and push those changes after generating the static files. And it will show up on my GitHub Pages hosted blog. So let's go ahead and do that now. First, I'm just going to add them to my blog repo, and that's just so that I don't lose them if I was to lose my computer or my computer were to crash and die horribly. And then I'm just going to push those changes so that they're available there. Now I'm going to change into that public directory, and I'm going to go and do the same thing to... Oh wait, first I'm going to generate the static files. That's right, I've got to generate them before I try to commit them to the GitHub Pages repo. So cool, now that's done, I'm just going to do a change directory into that public folder, and I'm going to add the files and commit them. So once that's done, I can go ahead and check out my live website. So if I go here and refresh, it can take a little while, like I've said previously. Eventually it updates and you can see it reflects what you saw when I was serving it locally. But what if we want to add a subdomain? Well, you can just specify it here. It's really that simple. So I've got my own website, tripwiretech.com, and I want to add a subdomain, miscoding.tripwiretech.com. If I hit save, it's going to add a CNAME file into this GitHub Pages repo, and then I need to go to my DNS provider and configure it because it hasn't been configured yet. So I'm just going to copy that URL because that's where I want my CNAME record to point to. If you were not doing a subdomain, if you wanted it to point directly to your main website, then you'd need to add a records pointing to the IP address. And GitHub provides an explanation of how to do that. So this is the subdomain, miscoding, and this is where I want it to point. So if I go ahead and add that record and update, I should now be able to access my blog from that miscoding website, miscoding.tripwiretech.com. Just if you do a DNS check, it should tell you when it was successful. It said it was failing. I'm not sure why, but I'll just double check because sometimes it says it's failing when it's not. Maybe the change hadn't propagated through. So you can see it's working, but the theme isn't showing. So that's what I mentioned earlier, and that you need to update that base URL here. So I'm going to update this base URL to be miscoding.tripwiretech.com. And once I've done that, I can just go ahead and I can commit that to my blog repo and my GitHub Pages repo. So once that's done, I'm going to go ahead and push those changes. All right, because I need to do a pull because it added that CNAME file to my repo. So I just need to pull that change, and then I can now push. I'll do the same for my blog repo as well. Oh yeah, it's worth noting that I'm going to have the links to my blog and my GitHub Pages repos in the description below. They might not help you a great deal because most of it is just configuration and actually running commands, but you can look at them if you're interested. So if I refresh here, eventually it should update. And you can see that it's picked up my theme now, and I'm on the miscoding.tripwiretech.com URL. So what happens if you want to add ads? So first off, I'm going to show you how to add Google Ads. So you're going to need to go to Google AdSense and add your domain, and then you can specify that you want to add a subdomain. So you can see this manage subdomain option. And I'm just going to add miscoding.tripwiretech.com. You might want to note that it says my site isn't ready to show ads. That's because my main domain doesn't have anything at the moment. So Google's not able to sort of do its thing and check things. You're going to want to copy this script here, which will automatically add ads to your pages. And what you're going to do is you're going to actually edit your theme. So a good way to do this would actually be to either create a pull request back to your theme to add ads if they don't allow for it already. Or you could fork if the license allows and add your own functionality on top. You would typically, if you're adding this, want to actually parameterize it because you will obviously don't want everyone using your ad ID, ad publisher ID. So yes, this is my ads.html file. This is what I'm added as a file so that I can edit inside the header. So I've gone to this head file. This is actually going to add to every single page on my website. If I only wanted specific pages, I'd want to go and add it to a different part of the layout. Sorry about that, I lost my train of thought. So once that's done, I can go and generate those files. Okay, it says ads isn't defined. Okay, so if I go back to... Okay, actually that's supposed to be in quotes, so that's what the issue is. So when you're referencing your partial HTML, you should be putting it in quotes there. And so once I go and generate this again, my static pages should actually have that script included for the Google Ads. And then I would want to go ahead and commit these changes. There's actually nothing to commit for my blog. That's a bit of a mistake. I need to be in the public directory because I've changed what the static content will be. but I haven't changed what my blog itself will be. And that's why I recommend that the proper way is to actually make a change to the theme itself, and either do it for a pull request or fork the repo, because you won't have those changes persisted because you're not committing them, the ads. So if you were to lose your computer, you'd have to go make those changes again in the future. But anyway, these static files will include that ad script. If you wanted to, you could just go through and manually add them to these, but it'd be a bit more effort, and would tend to get overridden in the future. So that's why I wouldn't recommend doing it that way. So once I've done that, if I go back to my home, you want to submit your site for review, but because mine's currently broken, I can't do that. And then when you refresh your website and inspect the page, you're going to see the script that indicates that you would have Google ads. So you can see ads by Google, and a few different other scripts that indicate that Google ads have been included. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial today. If you have, please like and subscribe for more content.